Let us begin this retreat with some chanting offered by the monastics. They are going to chant the name of the Bodhisattva Avalokita, a person known for his capacity to listen deeply to the suffering inside and outside. Thanks to that practice of going back to himself and listen deeply to his own suffering, to get in touch with his own suffering, understanding and compassion arise, and brought transformation and healing. That is why Avalokita was able to look at other people around him and understand their suffering and help them to transform. So the monastics are going to chant the name of Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva of deep listening. And the way they chant is each time 3 times. The first time when they chant Namo Avalokiteshvaraya, they try to touch the suffering within themselves. Because the monastics, they do have the suffering inside. And they know that the suffering also reflects the suffering of the world. And understanding our own suffering make it possible and easier for us to understand the suffering of the other person, of the world. So it's very important that we go back to ourselves and get in touch with the suffering inside and listen to it. And the practice always brings effect, has an effect. It brings compassion. When you get in touch with the suffering, when you understand suffering, compassion naturally arises. And the energy of compassion is a kind of energy that has the power of healing. And you heal yourself. You feel lighter. You feel healed. And now you can get in touch with the suffering of another person. Usually people do not like to go home to themselves and get in touch with the suffering inside. It's not pleasant, they think. So the usual way is to try to run away from the suffering inside by the way of consumption. We listen to the music, we watch television, we talk over the telephone, we try to eat something. And that is only to cover up the suffering inside, to run away from it. And that does not help. But the practice is to go home and to get in touch with the suffering inside and listen deeply to it in order to understand. And surely understanding, compassion will be born from that kind of practice. So when the monastics chant the name Avalokita for the second time, they try to recognize and touch the suffering of the people in front of them, around them, behind them. And there is a kind of communion established. And then when they chant the name for the 3rd time, they get in touch with the suffering in the world. There's a lot of suffering in the world. The planet Earth suffers. Many species on it suffer. And when we are in touch, compassion arises also. So our practice is that while we listen, we allow the collective energy of the Sangha to penetrate into our body. There is some tension in our body. There is some pain in our body. And if we allow ourselves to be relaxed and to be in the here and the now, stop the thinking. And then the collective energy of mindfulness and peace will penetrate to our body. And that helps release the tension and reduce the pain in our body. And we feel better after a few minutes of listening. And we can do like the monastics, when they chant the first time the name Avalokita, we can go home and touch the suffering inside. We recognize the existence of the suffering inside. We are not trying to run away. We just try to hold it dearly like this. And we allow the Sangha, the collective energy of Sangha, to hold our suffering. This is a very important practice. We sit there. We allowed the collective energy of the Sangha to embrace us, to hold our suffering. We do not stay as a drop of water. We become the river. And we allow ourselves to be transported by the whole river. And in order to do that, we just allow ourselves to be in the here and the now and relax. And allow the Sangha to embrace us. I take refuge in the Sangha. You surrender to the Sangha. You lose your individuality, yourself. And when the monastic chant the name for the second time, we can pay attention to the suffering of the person who is close to us. He or she may be here in a retreat or at home. We allow ourselves to touch, to be aware of the suffering inside of him or her. And when the monastic chant the name for the third time, we allow ourselves to be aware of the suffering that is going on in the world, a little bit everywhere. Violence, discrimination, killing, hate, despair. And the whole time of chanting and listening is to allow the energy of compassion to arise from our heart. It will be very healing. Especially when we allow the collective energy of the Sangha to support us in the practice. If we have some pain and sorrow and despair in our heart, we may like to open our heart so that the collective energy of mindfulness and peace of the Sangha could penetrate and help embrace that pain, that sorrow, that fear, the despair in our heart. And after a few minutes, we'll feel better. Healing is possible right now and right here with the practice of listening. And if we have someone close to us who suffers at this moment, who cannot come to the retreat tonight, we might very well send this energy to him or to her just by thinking of that person or calling his or her name silently. And this collective energy of the Sangha will be channeled to that person. And at home or in the hospital, that person will feel better. So let us practice together. This is not the practice of praying So it is a practice of meditation, using the energy of mindfulness concentration in order to listen and to allow the energy of compassion to heal us.